What you are about to hear is not a work of fiction, but a chilling account of real events reported by eyewitnesses, investigators, and historical records. If you believe that the unexplained doesn't exist, then this story might just change your mind. They say Fox Hollow Farm in Westfield, Indiana, looks calm and quiet from the outside, like any other peaceful place surrounded by gentle trees and wide lawns, but the story behind it is much darker than what you see when you drive by on a sunny afternoon. People still talk about how, in the mid to late 1990s, investigators found remains on the property, remains that belonged to people whose lives had ended too soon. There was a man named Herb Baumeister who lived there and was suspected of doing awful things to people who trusted him. When the truth came out, it caused a storm of shock. Neighbors could not believe something so terrible had happened so close to them. You would think that once the police left and the news teams stopped visiting, the house would become just another empty building. But over time, stories began to spread. These were not ordinary stories about drafts in the hallway or pipes banging when the temperature changed. These stories spoke of strange shapes at the edge of the yard, of voices crying out in the night, of doors that slammed when nobody was near. People who moved into Fox Hollow Farm tried to enjoy the peaceful land, the big rooms, and the lovely views, but many began to notice small, unsettling things. Sometimes they heard footsteps behind them even when they were alone. Other times, they caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure in a hallway mirror that vanished when they turned around. There were nights when strange tapping sounds came from inside the walls. The owners would check for raccoons or squirrels, only to find nothing at all. The more these things happened, the more it felt like the house had a memory of sadness and fear that clung to each window and door. It was as if each plank of wood could still recall the terrible secrets that once hid here. People say the spirits lurking around might be the victims who lost their lives to the person who once controlled this space. They also say that the house itself seems alive, as though it remembers each moment and cannot let go. Some visitors have sensed chills on warm days, or the feeling of being watched from a window on the second floor, only to look up and see no one there. Others have felt a gentle tug on their clothes while walking down the main hallway, as though someone reached out for help. Over the years, Fox Hollow Farm has become a quiet legend. It is not as famous as certain grand haunted castles or mansions, but those who dare to step onto the ground sometimes come away convinced that they felt something they cannot explain. Folks who own the house sometimes invite paranormal researchers to check for evidence. These investigators bring cameras, audio recorders, and other devices to detect changes in temperature or electromagnetic fields. They have captured strange noises, like faint whispers or moans, and have noticed sudden cold spots even in the middle of summer. They have recorded voices that say words nobody in the group spoke out loud. One investigator claimed that a door moved with such force it almost hit her, even though she was standing entirely alone. The ghostly energy at Fox Hollow Farm is often described as sad more than scary. Some say you can almost sense the deep sorrow of the victims. It feels like the grounds have absorbed all that pain and refuse to let it fade. But there are also times when the atmosphere grows tense and thick, like a warning that you should stay back. People have spoken of nightmares after spending a night in the guest room. They dream of people crying out for help, or of running through dark fields and never finding a safe place to hide. Some have woken in the dark, feeling a hand on their shoulder, only to discover that the room is empty. They turn on the light, and everything looks perfectly normal, except for the racing of their heart and the lingering thought that they are not alone. The property itself is large, with tree lines that seem to stretch forever. People say if you walk out there at dusk, you might feel the brush of something passing by. The wind might carry a soft wail that sends chills up your spine. Sometimes visitors describe seeing flickering lights in the distance, dancing in the trees, as though tiny lanterns are floating without any human holding them. When they go closer, the lights go out, and all that remains is the sound of leaves rustling. Some nights, folks claim to see a pale figure near the pond, a figure with a lonely stance, as if searching for something or someone who is long gone. That figure has been seen by more than one person, yet it never seems to speak or look directly at anyone. Instead, it stands there for a moment, then drifts away into the shadows, leaving the witnesses with a cold feeling in their chest. Some families have tried to bring warmth and light to Fox Hollow Farm, hoping to rid the house of whatever troubles linger there. They open curtains wide, plant bright flowers, play cheerful music, and fill the rooms with laughter. For a while, it works, and they almost forget about the strange chills in the hallway or the faint thuds in the attic late at night. But sure enough, when the house grows quiet, the unsettling feeling creeps back. A window may slam shut on its own, or a door may lock itself, or footsteps might echo in the basement. Sometimes, someone will smell a strong odor, like old decay, and it will vanish just as quickly as it appeared. People say the house carries a permanent scar, a mark left by the grim past that no amount of painting or cleaning can erase. Some owners have laughed, saying the house made them feel uneasy every day. They wanted a place to rest, not a place that felt like it was constantly looking over their shoulder. Others have stayed, determined to show love to a home that was once tainted by evil. They believe that kindness and caring can heal even the darkest memories. Yet, even those who believe in second chances still witness odd events they cannot dismiss. They write about them in journals, or post them in small online groups, hoping someone else will say, "Yes, I have felt that too." That is how the stories spread and become the lore of Fox Hollow Farm, repeated in hushed voices around campfires or while telling spooky stories on a chilly autumn night. Now and then, a show about ghosts or a documentary crew hears about Fox Hollow Farm and wants to film an episode. They arrive with bright lights and dramatic music, hoping to catch something incredible on camera. Often, what they record are subtle moments, a faint whisper, a door that closes on its own, or a cold shiver that makes the hair on their arms stand on end. They may leave without capturing a full ghostly figure, but they leave convinced that the house holds an energy beyond normal life. As time goes on, fewer people recall the name Herb Baumeister. But Fox Hollow Farm still stands, its walls quiet in the daylight but alive at night with memories. In the distance, you might see a flicker of movement, or hear a cry that drifts over the fields, and you will know that the past is still present here, still speaking in soft, desperate tones. Some believe the spirits are crying for justice, while others think they are lost, repeating their final moments in a never-ending cycle. If you ever find yourself traveling near Westfield, Indiana, and you pass by the property, you might not see anything strange from the road. It may just look like a nice estate hidden among the trees. But those who have gone inside, those who have walked the long corridors and stayed long enough to feel the air shift, have come away forever changed by what they saw or felt. If you visit, you might be welcomed by the warm sunshine, the chirping birds, and the smell of blooming flowers. You might spend all day exploring the grounds and not notice a single thing out of place. But stay until nightfall, and that is when the house seems to awaken with its secrets. A light might turn on in an upstairs window, even though nobody is up there. You may hear soft sobbing under the stairs, and when you check, you find only dusty boxes. You may see a faint figure standing on the front porch, staring at you as though it wants something, then slipping away into the gloom. For some, these moments bring terror. For others, they spark a deep sadness. The ghostly presence does not always feel evil, though it can be startling. It often feels like old pain, echoing through time, reminding us that real people suffered here. That is the hardest part for many to accept, because these are not just stories, they are tied to real events and real loss. Some owners have tried spiritual cleansings, bringing in priests or mediums who walk through each room, saying blessings and prayers. They burn sage or sprinkle holy water, asking that any restless spirits find peace. Sometimes the house grows quieter for a few days or weeks, but sooner or later, the strange activities resume. It is as if the land itself refuses to forget, keeping the memory of those who died here. Over the years, small articles have been written about the hauntings. They do not usually end up on the front page. Fox Hollow Farm is not as flashy as some other haunted places, and it does not bring in busloads of thrill seekers on ghost tours. Instead, its story is known by people who pass it from one person to another, like a secret that is too important to keep hidden but too sad to shout from the rooftops. Late at night, if you were to stand near the barn or close to the edge of the property, you might feel the hairs on your arms rise without warning. You might sense that someone stands behind you, just out of sight, watching you with quiet eyes. But when you turn around, you will see only the lonely shapes of trees swaying in the moonlight. Some say that if you close your eyes and hold your breath, you can almost hear faint voices on the breeze, whispers that beg for relief, or that simply say, "Hello." It is heartbreaking to think of them trapped there, if that is indeed what is happening, but it also makes you wonder about the nature of life and death, and what might linger when people do not get the chance to say goodbye. Several times, police or others have searched the property again, worried that maybe more remains might be hidden in the woods. Even after thorough checks, there always seems to be a sense that not everything has been found. Some visitors claim that lost souls point the way to secret spots on the land. They might see orbs of light guiding them deeper into the forest. They might hear a voice calling them by name. But each time they try to follow, the trail goes cold, and they feel only emptiness. These stories, while unsettling, keep the mystery alive. What else could be left out there, buried under the earth or concealed beneath fallen leaves? People have brought dogs to sniff around, but even the dogs sometimes act strangely, barking at nothing or cowering away with their tails tucked. It is as if the animals sense something that our human eyes cannot see. Meanwhile, life goes on. New owners come, try to live a normal life, and either learn to cope with the weird events or move away. Some of the owners keep quiet, not wanting the reputation of the farm to overshadow their attempts to enjoy the property. Others share their tales, warning the next family that they might not have restful nights. Over time, Fox Hollow Farm remains a place of quiet intrigue. Some ghost hunters call it a must-see location, a hidden gem in the paranormal world. Others find it too sad to turn into an attraction, believing that the spirits deserve respect and not gawking. Indeed, some folks say they have heard clear voices late at night, repeating, "Help me," over and over, and that is not the kind of thing you can easily forget. In the darkest hours, the house seems to hold its breath. You might feel the temperature drop around you as if a cold hand just brushed your arm. You might look into a mirror and see a face you do not recognize, then blink and see only your own reflection. It can be terrifying, but it can also spark empathy. If these spirits are real, they were once living, breathing people with families and hopes and dreams. Now, if they remain, they are stuck in a place that saw their final moments. That is a tragedy unlike any other. And so, when people gather to talk about haunted houses, someone might mention Fox Hollow Farm. They might tell a story of a friend who slept there and woke up to see a silhouette in the corner of the room, as though watching over them in silence. They might mention the caretaker who swore he saw footprints appear in the dust right in front of him, leading down the hallway and vanishing at the door. They might speak of the time they heard a faint crying sound by the pool area, where old tiles still hold the memory of footsteps that never made it back out. In each telling, the farm grows more mysterious, more layered with sorrow, and yet somehow more intriguing. People who do not believe in ghosts might shrug it off, saying old houses make noise, and big properties can feel spooky at night. But those who have truly felt the pulse of Fox Hollow Farm will shake their heads and say it is unlike anywhere else, that once you sense its darkness, you cannot ignore it. Yet, in the midst of all this, the house still stands with its walls, floors, and corners that catch the morning light in a beautiful way. Birds sing in the trees, children might play in the yard, and for a moment, it all seems normal. Then a door slams on a still afternoon, or a figure passes by a window in an empty room, and the chill returns. It reminds everyone that yes, this is a place with a burdened past, and that burden does not simply fade with time. It remains woven into the bricks and boards, a silent echo of lost voices. Some folks wonder if the victims might find peace if someone uncovered the last of their remains, gave them a proper ceremony, or spoke their names aloud. Others feel that the restless energy belongs to the house's old owner, a soul that cannot escape the guilt of what was done here. No one can say for certain, and so the questions remain as open as the farmland beyond the trees. The story of Fox Hollow Farm is not just about ghosts, but about how some places can hold the weight of sadness for years. It is about how a single property can become a reminder of how fragile life is, and how deeply tragedy can sink into the world around it. Each whisper, each shadow, each unseen hand is a thread in a larger tapestry that speaks of heartbreak and unanswered questions. That might be why the estate has never become a major tourist attraction. It is not a stage for cheap thrills. It is a real place, with real events that once shocked a community and have left a mark that lingers. People who go looking for a big spectacle might be disappointed, but those who pause and open their hearts may feel a quiet sadness that no fancy equipment can fully explain. If you ask some of the locals about Fox Hollow Farm, they might speak in hushed tones, sharing only a bit of what they have heard. They might warn you not to linger on the grounds too long after the sun sets. They might say to listen closely if you do find yourself there at night, because the house has a habit of speaking in the silence, letting you know it remembers everything that happened. Even though Herb Baumeister's name has faded from most people's minds, the estate he left behind still has an identity shaped by those terrible rumors and the evidence that was found. Those remains speak louder than any rumor, and they are the reason so many believe that the souls of the victims wander the property. The idea that people could vanish without closure haunts the living, too, making them wonder if they would ever find peace if the same happened to them. And so, generation after generation, Fox Hollow Farm remains there in Westfield, Indiana, with a winding driveway leading up to a house that has seen more darkness than most. You may drive past and see a pretty picture, but if you stay long enough, you might feel the sorrow underneath. It is a sorrow that does not rest, that stirs and moves whenever the night grows quiet. It might be a sound in the basement, a shape in the woods, or a cry on the breeze. It might be all of them at once, weaving together a melody of tragedy that only the open heart can hear. If you ever do decide to explore it, you should take a moment to stand still and listen. You might hear nothing, or you might hear everything. And if you are moved by what you sense, perhaps you will speak softly to the air, offering a prayer or a kind wish for peace. Some visitors say they have done this, and that afterward, they felt a gentle warmth spread around them, as if a voice whispered thank you. Others say that no matter how many prayers are offered, the energy remains trapped, circling the property in a loop of sadness. Yet, for all the strange happenings, Fox Hollow Farm can still have moments of quiet beauty. A soft sunrise can paint the fields gold, a gentle breeze can carry the perfume of wildflowers, and the rooms can fill with laughter when people gather for a meal. These moments prove that light still exists, even in places touched by darkness. People must choose how to live within that balance. Some decide to embrace the house's history, acknowledging what happened here, while still trying to bring kindness and life to the rooms. Others decide that the burden is too heavy and move on, leaving behind whatever ghosts still roam. But the farm itself stands steady, neither fully releasing its past nor breaking under its weight. Through rumors, investigations, short documentaries, and whispered tales, the legend of Fox Hollow Farm carries on. It is what some call a lesser-known haunting, not at the top of every ghost enthusiast's list, but powerful in its own quiet way. The story is a reminder that real horror can hide behind friendly facades, and that sometimes, the people next door might be living a secret life far darker than anyone suspects. When all is said and done, we cannot remove the past from Fox Hollow Farm any more than we can change the color of the sky. The spirits that dwell there, if spirits there, seem tied to the land. And while some nights might be peaceful, others ring with echoes of what once was, leaving us to wonder if the next whisper or light flicker could be a silent call for help from those who never found a way home. In this sense, the farm remains a mystery, a puzzle with no simple answer. It is a place that compels us to think about the thin boundary between the living and the dead. Maybe that boundary shifts under the weight of strong emotion, or maybe some events are so painful that they leave an imprint behind. Fox Hollow Farm might be one of those places, and if it is, then its story will keep stirring hearts for years to come, quietly waiting in the fields and walls for the next person brave enough to listen. If you want to keep up with tales like this and hear about other spots that hold mysteries under their surface, make sure to like and subscribe, because you never know what other stories of hidden secrets might be waiting just around the corner. Yet the tale does not end there, because Fox Hollow Farm seems to have endless stories that drift through every corner of the property, and if you talk to those who have lived there for any length of time, you will hear a deeper set of experiences that stretch beyond the usual bumps in the night. One person who lived on the property for a summer claimed they would often see a figure at the very edge of their vision, as though someone stood just out of sight whenever they stepped into the main hallway. The moment they turned their head to look, the figure would vanish, leaving behind a strange feeling of being watched. At first, they tried to explain it away, telling themselves it was just a trick of the light or a reflection in the windows. But as time passed, they realized that this presence felt aware, as if it might be observing them, studying how they reacted to each new sound or sudden movement. The longer they stayed, the more they dreaded walking down that hallway alone, especially when dusk settled over the farm. They said that on the night before they moved out, they finally had the courage to speak aloud to whatever was there, quietly saying, "I hope you find peace." And in that instant, they felt a sudden breeze blow past them, even though no windows or doors were open. It felt like a sigh, soft and sad, then the hallway fell silent. They never forgot that moment. Another resident talked about the basement, which had always given them an uneasy feeling. The walls down there seemed damp, and the single light bulb cast odd shadows. One evening, they went down to grab some old tools, and their flashlight began to flicker like it was about to die. In the brief flashes of light, they saw what looked like a shape moving at the far end of the room, near an old wooden table. It was too dark to see clearly, but they heard what sounded like scratching, or perhaps tapping. They froze, trying to steady the flashlight, but it kept blinking. Then, with a final bright flash, the flashlight came back on fully and the shape was gone. Yet the tapping sound did not stop. It echoed through the room, getting closer, until they dropped the tools and ran upstairs. They did not go back down to the basement for weeks. Even thinking about it made them uneasy, as if something had reached out to them from the darkness. A curious group of ghost hunters once got permission to do a more thorough investigation, setting up cameras and digital recorders in different rooms. They split up around the property, planning to stay all night. One member chose to monitor the barn area, where people had sometimes heard distant cries. The rest set themselves in the house. In the barn, the investigator walked slowly among the dusty beams, shining a flashlight around. Suddenly, they picked up the faint sound of footsteps behind them, but no one was there. They called out, thinking maybe someone from the group was playing a trick, but nobody answered. The footsteps continued, moving in a slow circle around them, as if an invisible figure walked behind the walls. Then came a voice, just a whisper, saying something the investigator could not fully catch, though they swore it sounded like a name. They felt a wave of fear and shouted, "Hello, who is there?" But the whisper only repeated once more before fading away. Later, when the investigator played back the audio recorder, they heard a faint sound that might have been a single word, "Help," drawn out so softly that it gave them chills. Inside the house, another team member tried to communicate with any spirits by asking questions out loud. They said, "If anyone is here, please give us a sign." For a long minute, nothing happened, and the silence grew thick. Then the device that measures electromagnetic energy began to spike. The gauge jumped from 0 to high readings for a few seconds, then back down, as if something had moved into the space and left again. The team member asked, "Is this your home, or are you trapped here?" The device flickered once more, then went still. Not long after that, the door at the far end of the room slammed shut, though there was no breeze in the house. Everyone rushed over, hearts pounding, but the hallway was empty. When they tried to open the door, it felt stuck, as though someone was holding it closed from the other side. After a few tries, it swung open easily, and the hallway beyond was dark and cold. They felt as though something was warning them not to intrude any further. Over in the living room, a camera placed on a tripod captured a strange orb of light floating near the ceiling. It was not dust or a bug, because it moved in a way that seemed deliberate, circling slowly before darting across the frame. For a moment, it hovered near a doorway, grew brighter, then disappeared. The investigators could not find a normal explanation, so they added it to their growing list of weird findings. By the end of the night, they had recordings of unexplained knocks, whispers, and footsteps, plus video of orbs and odd lights. They also had plenty of personal experiences, like that sense of being touched on the shoulder by a hand that was not there, or the sudden feeling of sadness in a room that moments before felt normal. When they finally packed up to leave, they all felt drained, like the house had pulled energy from them. Some even reported vivid nightmares for days afterward. These stories might sound exciting to those who enjoy the paranormal, but for the families who try to live in Fox Hollow Farm, they are a reminder of the weight this place carries. You cannot simply ignore it, because it shows itself in small but startling ways. One family that stayed there for a while had 2 children who both talked about seeing a man standing by their bedroom door at night. The kids described him as tall, with a blurry face. He never spoke, but he would stare at them for a few seconds before fading away. At first, the parents thought the kids were having nightmares, possibly from hearing adult conversations about the farm's past. But when the parents began hearing footsteps in the hall and found the door open, even though they remembered closing it, they started to wonder if the children had truly seen something. Eventually, they moved away, hoping to find a home that would let them all sleep peacefully. But they carried that memory with them because experiences like that can be hard to forget. Another owner said that some nights, the entire property felt wrapped in silence so thick it hurt their ears. No birds sang, no wind blew, and even the insects seemed to go quiet. It was during those times that they would hear faint cries, almost like muffled sobs, carried from somewhere near the woods. When they tried to follow the sound, it would always seem to come from a different direction, as though moving away from them. They never managed to find a single clue about where the noise came from, and they did not see any animals or people. They were left only with an uneasy feeling, the sense that someone was out there, mourning in the darkness. Adding to the mystery, some have claimed to see apparitions in old-fashioned clothing, perhaps from a different era. They describe glimpses of men or women dressed in ways that do not match the 1990s or modern styles. Were these older spirits attached to the land long before Herr Baumeister ever lived there, or are these visions just illusions formed by fear? No one can be sure, and that is part of what keeps Fox Hollow Farm's legend going. The land itself has a history, possibly stretching back centuries before the house stood. The soil might hold stories we do not fully know, and when tragedy struck in the 1990s, it might have awakened older energies, if one believes in such things. Over time, each new resident adds their own part to the tale. Most do not do so willingly. They simply cannot escape the odd occurrences. Some folks keep a diary of events, writing down each time a door slams, or each time they see a flicker of movement in the corner of their eye. Looking back at these diaries can be chilling because you notice patterns, such as the same times of night that footsteps echo, or the same rooms where objects move on their own. Patterns suggest that there is an intelligent force behind these happenings, rather than random creaks of an old building. One diary entry might read, 2 a.m., heard loud knocking from the basement. Investigated, found nothing. Next night, same time, basement door rattled. Another entry might say, lights in the upstairs hallway turned on by themselves. Switch was still in the off position. These small notes build into a larger picture of a place that simply does not rest. If you ask the locals why it is not more famous, some will say it is because Fox Hollow Farm still belongs to private owners, who do not want it turned into a circus for thrill seekers. Others might shrug and say people have short memories, and the nation moved on to the next news story after the initial shock. But there are also those who feel that the secrets here are too painful, and so they remain in the shadows, discussed only among people who really want to know. The farm's haunting presence is not the kind that begs for attention. It is more like a quiet reminder that something sad happened here. For those who are sensitive to these energies, it is enough to make them shiver, especially at dusk when the sky turns orange and shadows grow long. In truth, many do not realize the place is connected to a suspected serial killer. They just sense that Fox Hollow Farm has a heavy atmosphere, and if they happen to spend time there, they come away feeling as though they have walked through a story that is not quite finished. Some who have spent nights there in the guest rooms describe intense dreams that leave them shaken. They dream about wandering the corridors in old, tattered clothes, or of fleeing through the woods with a terrible fear in their hearts, as if something hunts them. When they wake up, they are covered in sweat, their hearts racing, and they cannot shake the sense that they just lived a small piece of someone else's final moments. Others dream of a man with a blurred face, beckoning them to follow him deeper into the property. They say that in the dream, they know if they follow, they might never come back. A few have woken up screaming, determined never to sleep in that room again. It might sound like a scene from a movie, but the people who have experienced it say it feels more real than any nightmare they have had before. They talk about the details being too vivid, the smell of the grass, the sound of leaves crunching, the pounding of blood in their ears. All these nightmares add another layer of intrigue to Fox Hollow Farm, making people wonder if the spirits reach out through dreams, trying to communicate or share what happened to them. Imagine living in such a place day after day, trying to keep a normal routine, going to work, cooking dinner, watching television, while always feeling like you are not entirely alone. You might see flickers of light moving in the backyard, or find your belongings in different spots than where you left them. You might hear your name spoken softly when you are half asleep. Some people cope by denying it, telling themselves it is all in their head. Others embrace it, setting out recordings or walking through the halls at night, softly talking to the silence as though trying to comfort whoever might be there. A few even find themselves growing fond of the property, feeling pity for the spirits, if that is what they truly are. They might talk to them gently, saying things like, "You are safe, no one can hurt you now." They claim that helps ease some of the tension, as if a small kindness can soothe old wounds. Occasionally, you will hear about a visitor who felt an overwhelming sense of anger or dread in one particular spot, like the attic or a closet. They say it was so strong it made them feel ill, forcing them to leave the room. Could it be that some darker presence also remains, a reflection of the cruelty once shown by the man who lived there? People debate this, with some convinced there is a shadowy figure that represents malevolence, while others insist the overall feeling is sorrow. Maybe both can exist at once, depending on who experiences it and when. The truth is that we may never know exactly what lies behind every strange noise or sighting. All we know is that Fox Hollow Farm stands as a testament to how real-life horror can leave a place scarred. The question is whether that scar breathes, whether it holds on to energies that refuse to fade. In a way, the farm is a lesson about how tragedies do not simply vanish once the news cycle moves on. The land remembers, and if you believe the stories, the spirits do too. Some argue that the best way to help is to acknowledge that these souls might still need closure, to treat the house and property with respect, and to not sensationalize it for cheap thrills. Others suggest that thorough investigations could finally release the spirits by uncovering truths that remain hidden. But so far, Fox Hollow Farm continues much the same as it has for years, a place of quiet days and restless nights, known to some and ignored by others. The families who have chosen to remain have found their own ways to deal with the strange occurrences. They might keep lights on at night, or politely ask visitors not to wander alone. They learn which rooms feel the heaviest, and sometimes choose not to use them. Over time, they adapt, though they never fully forget the nature of their home. When guests ask, they might share a few stories, but often they warn them not to dig too deeply, unless they truly want to experience the chills that come with it. Visitors who scoff sometimes change their tune after hearing footsteps follow them down a hallway or feeling a sudden breath on their neck. Each new witness adds another voice to the legend, and so the story grows, not in loud headlines, but in murmurs and personal testimonies. Occasionally, a rumor surfaces about new remains discovered or new evidence of paranormal activity, but these are often just that, rumors. Still, they keep the sense of mystery alive. Is there something else buried beneath the soil, waiting to be found? Are the voices trying to guide people to that spot, or are they simply echoes stuck in time? No one knows for sure, and that unknown can be as haunting as any ghostly figure. You might feel an urge to keep driving, to not look too closely, because something about Fox Hollow Farm stirs fear and pity at the same time. People who are brave enough to enter might hear their own names whispered back to them, which is quite unsettling if no one else is around. Some blame these experiences on suggestion, the power of the mind expecting something creepy. But others insist that you cannot explain everything away. The farm has a pattern of sightings that do not vanish, no matter who lives there or how often it is blessed or prayed over. Even the animals on the property sometimes act strangely, barking at corners or refusing to enter certain areas. Horses may whinny anxiously at night, as though they see someone approach. Cats may hiss at an empty doorway. All of it adds up to a place that feels caught between normal life and a realm of restless spirits. Still, day breaks each morning, bringing sunshine, routine chores, and for a while, everything looks like any other countryside estate. Flowers bloom, trees rustle in the wind, and the house glows with warm, natural light. Children might play hide and seek, giggling as they run across the yard. But at the back of everyone's mind is the knowledge that when darkness returns, Fox Hollow Farm might once again show its other face. It is that shift from day to night that truly defines the haunting, as if the property waits for the quiet to unfold its memories. Some believe that if you treat the farm with compassion and tenderness, you can live there without too much disturbance. They say the energies react to kindness, as though remembering a time when they were left without mercy. Others find that even kindness is not enough to erase the painful traces that remain. For the curious among us, the story of Fox Hollow Farm is not just about ghostly figures and eerie happenings. It is about the weight of human actions, how cruelty can linger and become part of a place, and how the victims' stories might still whisper across time, longing for understanding. It is also about the question of whether a place can be redeemed, whether love and empathy can help heal the unseen wounds. No one has found a perfect answer yet, but the attempts to do so are part of the farm's ongoing history. And so it goes on, year after year, with some owners leaving and others arriving, each one becoming part of the story whether they wish to or not. People continue to share their encounters in small circles, on online forums, or over cups of coffee with friends who do not believe them until the moment they see something themselves. And always, the quiet tension remains. Will the spirits ever find peace, or will Fox Hollow Farm carry this haunting presence for as long as it stands? If you ever happen to find yourself near Westfield, Indiana, and you get the rare chance to see the property up close, remember the stories. Remember the ones who say they felt unseen eyes on them, or heard a sorrowful voice calling out from beyond. Remember that real pain shaped these walls, and that not all scars can be healed with time alone. Show respect, show caution, and if you feel brave enough, see if you can sense the echoes of the past. Some believe that acknowledging those echoes can bring a small measure of comfort to whatever remains, as though simply being heard is a gentle step toward rest. And whether you believe in ghosts or not, it is hard to deny that places like Fox Hollow Farm make us think about the line between life and death, and about what might linger when life ends in violence and mystery. Perhaps that is the true haunting, a reminder that every place, no matter how pretty, can hold secrets that defy our usual explanations. We can choose to ignore them or face them, but either way, they remain, quietly shaping our world. So, if you enjoy stories like this, if you want to hear more about the secrets that old buildings can hold, or the mysteries that might still roam our streets and fields, go ahead and like and subscribe. There are countless tales out there waiting to be told, hidden in dusty attics and silent rooms, waiting for someone to listen. And for now, Fox Hollow Farm stands as one of those tales, a subtle but powerful reminder of how the past can reach into the present, how sorrow can leave footprints that never fade, and how courage and respect might be the only guides we have when facing the unknown.